About the project. The goal of this project was to basically replicate this brochure here, but do it in a digital environment. And when we moved to a digital environment, we could add color, background texture, and a number of very rich graphic elements. I'm going to show you how to create these in this tutorial here. Step 1, prepare overall design. This was an art project, this brochure project was an art project for a very highly skilled group of calligraphers, so we needed to get the right graphic appeal. We needed this to look just fantastic. So we had decided on the previous year's brochure as a template, and that was a 4-panel brochure. And basically, once we had decided that, I was able to go in the digital environment, and I had come up with about 7 different options of how this thing could look. And partway through that, I realized that we really should develop a theme, and we decided on the old world theme for this. Once that theme was chosen out of the 7 options, there was basically about 7 versions of that option to get us to final print version. The digital environment allowed us to add the background texture. It allowed us to add colorized art as opposed to black and white from the previous brochure. It allowed us to replace the brochure with new art, fresh art that was created just recently. And it was very easy to do that. And it also allowed for a new map to be included in the front cover and the back cover of the brochure. Again, to give it an old world sort of feel. And finally, we created a new map and a seal, a graphic seal, indicating that the guild has been around since 1974. And you can see from these images of how the overall design sort of unfolded in the actual photo that you see here of the finished piece. You can see the inside of the brochure. You can see the inside fold that shows the new map of the guild's location. You can see the background cover. And of course, you can see the front cover of the brochure. Step 2, graphic elements. All of the graphic elements reflect the old world feel. The cover map, the cover logo with the old style Gothic look to it, the guild map, sort of the treasure map look on it that we created. Even the seal has traditional Gothic calligraphy indicating 1974. The initial caps for each of the paragraphs there were all done using authentically hand-created calligraphy pieces that were shared between Mark Lurs and myself. Step 3, prepare artwork assets. What you're looking at here is the file folder of where Scribus was sort of located. And I do that intentionally, and I have all of my design assets in a separate folder just below that. And what I'm doing here is I'm just showing you some of the graphic assets that were used in the brochure itself. I'm going to go to the original scan of the calligraphy work here, and I'm going to bring that into GIMP, and I'm going to clean it up in GIMP. So I load it in here, and you notice 3 different defects. That's the second one, that's the third one. We're going to clean those up, and we're going to do that by using the pencil tool, which has a very sharp edge to it. And I'm using white paint. And I'm just correcting that and fixing those artifacts. I can go in, I can make the pencil smaller as I zoom in to get more detail, to clean that up. And I can use my handy navigation tool to scan the whole area and find the final piece. Of course, you could clean this up in Inkscape, but I just find it easier to do it in GIMP. Once it's cleaned up, I save that file. And then I'm going to use it in the next step to load into Inkscape to vectorize it. Part 4, process vector artwork. So in this step here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my cleaned calligraphy graphic here into Inkscape by just using drag and drop from my Windows Manager onto Inkscape. Inkscape will load up. The size of the page will be in accordance with the size of the graphic. You have to make the graphic active, and then you go into the trace bitmap option here. And basically you need to set a resolution of how crisp you want that artwork to look. And it's a trade-off, so I would experiment with that a couple of times. Click OK, And what happens is it vectorizes the original artwork that you had brought in there. And to verify that, I'm just going to change that color to red here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that to the background, and I'm going to get rid of the original artwork, the original bitmap. I deleted it, and now you can see the artwork here. I'm going to turn that back to black because in the final output I want it to be black. I can zoom in here and I can inspect the detail and the quality level by panning around. And I'll also zoom back to the page to see the final output here. Then what I want to do is I want to save it as a vector, as an SVG. SVG files load directly into Inkscape, which is fantastic. But they're only basic SVG, like the one shown here. Part 5, Layout. What I've done is I've gone to scribus.net here, and I'm just going to hit enter here, and you can see the Scribus webpage. This is the official Scribus website. You can download the software here just by clicking on download, and there's various versions: Windows, Linux, Mac OS, and they even have a version for OS 2, if you can believe it. What an amazing operating system that was. Didn't realize people were still using it though. Having said that, there's a couple of other features here I want to show you. Other than download, one of the things I want to show you is some examples. And if you go to the wiki that Scribus has, click on publications and then click on, like, as an example here, 2011, some success stories. And you can see kind of what Scribus is capable of, which I think is really important if you're just getting started with this. Some really excellent text treatments here, some charts that are shown, some layouts for some booklets, some CD covers, things of that nature. Basic standard brochure with a number of colors, more booklets here that are done, and an entire magazine. And I should note that GIMP magazine is also done entirely using Scribus, Inkscape, and GIMP as kind of the triple play there. Scribus also has a blog to keep their clients up to date as to what's happening with the software. And the latest version is 1.4.1, I believe, at the time of doing this video here. They also have a really great link, and it's in the article, and it will be in the YouTube post as well, of creating a 3-fold brochure. Now, we're actually using a 4-panel brochure, so we're going to modify this slightly. But these are the overall steps. Use a single page here, which is the most critical, not a 3-fold or other type of fold here. And I'm using a landscape layout. And I'm basically going to adjust some of these settings. And we're going to show you how to do that in Scribus itself. And then this post also shows you about how to create margins and grids, and or guides, I should say. And this is really useful if you're doing a 4-panel brochure or even a 3-panel brochure. And I'll show you how to set that up as well. This tutorial is what helped me to get started with Scribus and creating a brochure in Scribus. You could use Inkscape to do it, but Scribus is the best tool for this of all, I've found in my experience. And this shows you how it would fold if you're creating a folded brochure here. You can see how the front cover, the back cover, the inside and the outside sort of text that would appear. So it's a really great post. You should definitely check it out and see it. All right, so I'm going to launch Scribus at this point by just double-clicking on the icon now that I have it installed on my computer. And I'm running 1.4.1 of Scribus, and I happen to be running that on Windows Vista. And I have to say, it is absolutely rock solid. It never crashes, which is amazing. All right, so I'm just going to toggle back and forth here to the guide, and I'm going to do this from scratch here. So I've created single page, and I'm going to look for legal size paper because that's what we want it on. Found it. And now what I want to do is I basically want to have a look at what the margins are. And I'm not going to work in points. I'm going to work in inches to kind of simplify it for you a bit. So I'm going to use default properties of inches here. And I'm going to accept the defaults of that. It's a little bit more than a 1/2 inch. You want to check with your printer and ask them how much of a bleed is required or how much of a margin is required when you're creating a brochure here. And they'll tell you that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click OK to set up the page, and it sets up the margin here. And you'll notice that it is a 2-page brochure, as you can see here, the front and back of the page. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the margin setup. I'm just going to scroll down to this guide, which is a great guide. I would definitely use this if you're creating a brochure. And basically I go into under Pages, Manage Guides. I open that up. I click on the second tab here. And basically I say that I want 4 panels, so essentially I want three sort of cuts here. And then what I want is an additional gap around each guide so that I know I don't place my text within that sort of area there. It's kind of a safe zone, so to speak. And there are my guides. That's basically it. All right, so I've opened up the master document here that you can see. And I'm going to show you this background texture here. I'm just going to delete it to show you the guides that are in the background. And you can see how I have that all set up. I have a slightly smaller margin here. I just click Control-Z to bring back the guides. Now I'm going to go back to the test document here. I'm going to create an image. And what that does is it creates like an image frame, and there's nothing in it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my assets. I'm going to click and drag on the background texture that I created in GIMP, and I'm going to load it into that frame there. And then what I can do is I can click on F2 to bring up the properties for that particular object. And by clicking on Image, I can then see and scale it to the size of the frame itself, or I can freescale it. And what I can do is I can choose 300 dpi as a background that it was designed for. And there it is. That's sort of the final image that's brought in there. I can fine tune it by clicking on the object and then by scaling it. And if you hold the Control key, you will not distort the scale in any one direction. So that's how you create a background texture in Scribus. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to bring in graphic artwork, which is a little bit different than an image. This is vector work. So what I do is I basically take the vectorized artwork, not the bitmap, but the SVG file. And keep in mind that Scribus handles SVG files just great. Now when you bring it in, it will size it based on the size of your original image. So, but don't worry, because you can always rescale it and it will rescale perfectly. So I'm just locking down the aspect ratio here, and I'm going to set a size of this graphic to about 2 inches or 2.5 inches, something like that. And you'll notice that it scales it perfectly, and then I can just click and drag and move it anywhere on the page that I want. All right, so the next thing I'm doing here is I'm clicking on my text objects. I'm just moving the frame to show you there. And what I can do is I can click on this story editor icon, and I can edit this text in the story editor mode. I find this most useful because you can adjust all kinds of things here. You can adjust the font, you can adjust the point size, the various scaling options of text. I don't usually use that. And most importantly, tracking, and of course, color. Both color of the text itself as well as color of the outline of the text. And I'm just going to get out of that and show you the style manager. I would recommend you using this by creating new styles here. I'm just going to show you how to create a new style. This is how you do it here. You can type in the name of the style. I use this for GIMP magazine all the time. This adjusts your character settings here, very fine-tuning sort of adjustments that you can make. All kinds of things like underline, uppercase, lowercase, outline mode, shadow, drop shadow, scaling of text, and then of course your color, your text color, and then your outline color of the text. And then you have things like the size of the text, the size above the text, the leading line text, the afterline size, how much space you want after it. You can even get into things like indentation, leading indentation, and then sort of after indentation if you're using bullets or things of that nature. You'd find this very useful. So highly recommend you use styles. I didn't use it on this document, but I would recommend that if you're doing like a full-length sort of document here. And keep in mind that you can always override your styles as well. Okay, so I've created a text frame here, and I've resized it for the size of the panel. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert some just some sample text to see what it looks like. And you can do this by going Insert and Sample Text here. I'm just going to use English, and it comes with, I think it's Dracula text here. And you notice that it just sprays a text element in the frame, so you can kind of see what it looks like. And what I can do here is basically bring that text frame to the bottom, and you can see how it uses an outline of the calligraphy graphic there. And I can change that, and you can now see how the text just goes above it or below it based on its position. Now what I can do is I can go into the story editor and adjust some properties of the text itself. So I can use IMFell. Keep in mind here that you want to select the whole thing or parts of it when you do that. I can select the font size. I can scale the text. And I can even change the color of the text as I'm doing here. I'm going to change it to red. And when I'm done all my settings, you can just click on that little check mark to save everything off. And I just adjusted the tracking there as well a little bit. And there you have it. You can see how to make very simple text adjustments using Scribus. And again, F2 to call up the properties. You can also modify your text through the F2 text properties here, as I'm showing. And if you click on any portion of the text, you can fine-tune it. You can even change the font if you want. I'm using graduate font here. You can change the size of the font, the color, anything that you want. So it's very fine-tuning sort of abilities that you have with Scribus by using different sort of technologies, or I should say different dialogues here. This is just another way of getting to that same sort of element here. You can even make this text two-column if you want. And I've just done that now, and I can create a gap if I like of 1.2 or 0.125 inches by creating that. And it creates a little space or a gap between each of the columns here. And you can get into your more advanced settings by clicking on the Advanced tab, where you can adjust your tracking and different things of that nature for very fine-tuning sort of text abilities. I've just toggled back here to the main document, and I've used Control-Z to bring the text back in place. And I'm going to show you sort of a key element here, which is how to bring this to a PDF format and how to either for proof or for printing here. And I've just clicked on the PDF icon, and this brings up pre-flight, which shows you all of the errors in your document. I'm not going to go into that in too much detail. But I'm going to show you a key important thing here is use the latest and greatest PDF version here, and you can't go wrong. You can adjust this either for print by using 300 dpi or for proofing, 72 dpi, if you wanted to send it to a bunch of people for proof. And I did that with this actual brochure. I sent out the low resolution for proof. You can go into the fonts dialog here and make sure that you click embed all when you're using the fonts dialog. And that will ensure that when you send your PDF document to the printer will have the necessary fonts embedded in that PDF document. And it should print just perfectly. Now for the magazine, I can adjust these properties here if you're using a two-page, sort of facing pages type of format. But I'm not going to do that with this brochure. And you can also adjust your color models here, either for screen or for web. And this final dialog allows you to print things like registration marks. And check with your printer in advance if they want you to do that or not. My printer didn't want that, so I did not include that in my final PDF document. And then basically you just click OK, and it will save that document to, in this case, to my desktop, and it shows you a progress of that. This is a two-page document. It's very quickly it will get this done. If you're using 300 dpi, it will take a little bit longer. Now I'm just going to go to my desktop here and launch that PDF. I'll give it a second here. And it will fire up. And then what you can do is you can use PDF, fire this off to everybody on the team, and they can proof it for you. And that's showing the front page, and then that's showing the second page here, or the inside page. And that's basically it. That's how this document was created. There's one other thing I want to show you here, and that's called the alignment tools. You can call up the alignment tools as I've done here. And what this is for is aligning two or more objects together. So I've clicked on that text box, and then I'm going to click on this second text box here by holding the Shift key. And then I can align the second text box to the first one and center it. Now it already happens to be centered, so I'm just going to show you by left aligning it here and then bringing it back to center. This is a perfect tool to use to get everything perfectly aligned within each of your panels here, and that's what I use. I use it a lot. It also has a distribute function as well. My thoughts. I was very happy with how these brochures turned out. We did a small run of a few hundred copies, and we did this for a particular event that that we attended, and they turned out great. I mean, everybody was really, really happy with us, and I think it gave our guild a very professional-looking edge to this. I was also blown away with the fact that these were all done using open source software, and I was amazed at how solid Scribus was for doing this, and it never crashed at all. It was just, it responded perfectly, and it worked great with both Inkscape vector drawings, as well as the background textures and images that were created using GIMP. So it's really a triple play here, GIMP, Inkscape, and Scribus, and they work great together. If you found this video useful, check out my Digital Arts DVD course. It's 5.5 hours of content teaching you how to use both GIMP and Inkscape, and it's in a DVD format. It's about 2 gigabytes of HD videos, and it's about 15 folders worth of sample files that can be used both in GIMP and Inkscape. I also include 6 masterclasses of how I create digital art from start to finish. This is designed for digital artists, illustrators, photographers, graphic artists, and for people who are both beginners and advanced. Maybe you're a Photoshop user and you want to switch over to the open source world. this DVD will help you with that. Maybe you're a fine artist and you're considering bringing your artwork into the digital world by using an online portfolio. I have a special topic in this course that just deals with online portfolio solutions. This is available for purchase from PayPal and various credit cards. You can do this all online and it's delivered right to your door. It's currently selling on sale now for $39.99 in North America, and that includes shipping to your door, or $49.99 outside of North America, anywhere on the world, and that also includes shipping right to your door.